I think it's just important for us, ladies, at the outset to just think about the blessings that we have received this far. When you look back to 2021, what blessings have you gotten here now, 2022, that perhaps other people didn't get? How many lives did you change in 2021? How many lives are you going to change in 2022? Because you cannot change your life alone unless you change other people as well. So as we start 2022, I want to invite you to reflect on your leadership journey this far. And I want you to really think about being intentional about your leadership journey. Being intentional about your leadership journey will require that you set certain goals for yourself, will require that you hold yourself accountable, perhaps get a buddy who will also hold you accountable, but really, really hold yourself accountable about where you want to be and how you're going to get there. So these mentorship sessions really are about helping us get to that next level. And we can sit and talk until the cows come home. If we do not decide to take action about changing our lives, these webinars are good, but these webinars must be followed by real tangible action. So I want to challenge you on a monthly basis. Give yourself a task. At the end of the month, ask yourself, did I achieve? Did I do what I set out to achieve? And slowly, as the late Professor Wangari Maathai said, you change the narrative. So I just want to leave you with those words so that you really reflect on where you are, where you're going, and ask yourself the hard questions about how you're going to get there. Who's going to be the catalyst in your life? And are you going to be a catalyst for somebody else? Be intentional, ladies, about your leadership journey. Thank you, Rose.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for that challenge. It will be interesting to hear from the ladies within the WhatsApp group some of the things that they do intend to change and be intentional about. So thank you for that. Well, ladies, it's now that time where we discuss matters board effectiveness. And the question is, what makes an effective board? Is it the number of people in the board? Is it the age profile? Is it the competencies that are present? And what role then does the leader have in terms of that board effectiveness? So this evening, we will break up into 4 rooms, and each leader will then be tasked with facilitating the discussion around the subtopics covered. So the first question there will be, what does an effective board look like? What defines an effective board leader? How do you handle boards that have a leadership gap? So you have a board leader, but perhaps, is short on some areas in terms of competence or perhaps some of the softer skills. And the last question then will be handling board decisions that perhaps you don't agree with. Do you walk out? Do you throw tantrums? How do you gracefully, give feedback that is seen to be respectful, of yourselves? And so to lead us in these discussions, allow me to invite the 3 co-facilitators for this evening, and I'll request them to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit more about, their board experience before Kentai can then break us up in. And we'll give you the floor to introduce yourselves. Rose, karibu. Rose, are you on the call? Okay. I think while we wait for Rose to... Rose, are you there?
My apologies. I was having a bit of a challenge getting my video on, and yes. So good evening, everyone. My name is Rose Mora, and thank you so much for the Women on Boards team led by Catherine and Rose and Kantai that I've been chatting to. Thank you so much for inviting me to lead for this particular session. In terms of my board experience, no, it's not very extensive, but I have chaired and I've been on the council of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya. I was on that council for about 7 years. 2 of those years, I was the chairperson of the council, and for a year, I was the vice chairperson, and I also led a number of the council committees. In addition to that, currently, I am on the board of Jubilee Life Insurance. I chair the audit committee. I'm also I do chair one of the committees of KEPSA. I'm a vice chair, rather, one of the committees at KEPSA. And I'm also on the board of a company known as Letshego. I'm on the group board for that particular company. Yes, and I'm on the audit committee and a couple of other committees. So that has been, I would say, my board experience. And it has been an interesting journey. Hopefully, when we go into the breakout sessions, I'll be able to, share some of my experiences. But on a day-to-day basis, I talk more when we go into the breakout sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rose. I note that you've certain leadership roles within member organizations. So it'd be interesting to hear, when you compare, say, ISBAC and law societies, some of them are quite chaotic. Others are quite civil. We haven't had much around ISBAC. So interesting to hear some of those, areas, the dynamics. You're sitting in KEPSA, again, another member organization, with different interests. So how do you manage all that, within the committee? So it'll be interesting to hear some of those perspectives as we go forward. Thank you, Rose.
Absolutely.
Up next is Madam Zippy. Zippy, are you on the call?
Yes, I am. Good evening, ladies. And thank you, Rose, for having us this evening. My name is Zippy Musiemi. I am a social entrepreneur, and I do it in 2 parts. I believe my purpose in life is to empower people and develop institutions. So I empower people through mentorship, through coaching, and through mediation services. I also develop institutions through organizational change. I'm a change manager. And I also provide risk reduction through insurance. Now, my experience in boards is that I have sat in a number of boards since 2009. I started off by chairing a board of a community school. And I wanted to really understand the dynamics from down right at the grassroots. And I'm glad to say that after my tenure in that position, the school became fully pledged by the Ministry of Education and marked as one of the centers of excellence. Moving forward, I sat in the board of AIBK, that is Association of Insurance Brokers. I came in into the subcommittee of finance and administration. Basically, I was helping with strategy and implementation. And I moved later to be the convener of technical and compliance committee, because the insurance industry still goes through a lot of changes. I have sat in the board of Kenya Security Industry Association. I had a stint in the security sector, and I was a governing council member there. The sector was going through regulations from 2019, and I was asked to chair the Committee on Compliance. Currently, I sit in the board of Antara Health Inc., which is my position as a strategy advisor. I sit in the board of The Seasoned Woman as a strategy advisor as well. Salis is a member of this Women on Board. She invited me to chair her, to sit in one of our committees. I also mentor in her forums. I'm also a member of the Friends of the City Park, the people that try to fight to have a clean park within the city reserved for the future generation. I am a founder of a company called Powerhouse. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zippy. Interesting to hear a little bit more about social entrepreneurship and your journey within that space. So thank you very much. Up next is Dr. Nancy Marioki. Nancy, are you on the call?
Yes, I am, Rose.
Karibu sana.
I believe you can see me now.
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much, Rose, and thank you very much, Women on Board, and for the great work that you're doing. Thank you, FCS Catherine, and your entire team and all the members. It's a privilege and a great honor for me to be here. Nancy Marioki is currently a consultant in leadership and governance and human resource. And also I'm an adjunct lecturer at the Park University, Pan-African Christian University, in the Department of Leadership. Which is going to be the rest of my life journey to build cities leaders' immunity to corruption. Throughout my career, issues of integrity were central, and as I sat in boardrooms from a company secretary for many years and seeing that many of the problems that we are suffering from intricately are related to who we are, I eventually set on a mission to see how we can develop leaders who really care and who know the good and want to do the good. Many of us know the good, but they do not, we may not be that committed to do the good. And that is my mission right now, bringing awareness of servant leadership principles, which I believe is one very effective way of breeding leaders who will take this country out of corruption, or at least reduce the corruption. In terms of board experience, as a chairperson, I first chaired the board of my church here in Nairobi called the Charles New Methodist Church since 2016 for 4 years. And then in 2019, I was privileged to chair the board of CASNEB, which I have just done my first term and applied for reappointment and waiting to hear from the CS. I also sit in the board of KENAS, that is Kenya National Accreditation Service or Kenya Accreditation Service, which I did since 2016 as well. I'm doing my second term. I've been a chair of the Human Resource Committee, and currently I am the chair of the Finance and Investment Committee. I also sit in a board, in some schools board. One of them is a primary boarding school in Meru. I'm just finishing my term, first term, not renewing, because I'll be chairing a board of a secondary school that I've been on the board for a year or so, requested to chair. I'll be assuming that position as of the end of March. That is my board experience. But before becoming a board member, Rose, I believe that's enough for today.
Thank you very much for that introduction. It'll be interesting to hear a little bit more about the grow and glow concept that I saw within your bio as you have this conversation within the smaller groups.
Yes,
All
I'll
right.
be willing to do that.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Nancy. So Kantai, may I request that you please share those questions again so that we take them down as we move into our meeting rooms. Okay, so ladies, as earlier proposed, these are the topics that we will be covering in the smaller groups. Will be broken down into 3 groups, and each group will be led by the ladies who have just introduced themselves. And the subtopics to be covered include: what does an effective board look like? What defines an effective board leader? How do you handle boards with leadership gaps? And handling board decisions that you don't agree with. So we'll give ourselves about 25 minutes to discuss before we can then come back into plenary and have the final wrap-up session. So Kantai, are we ready to move into our breakaway sessions? Kantai, can you hear me?
Yes, I am. I'm preparing them.
Okay, all right. So ladies, feel free to ask questions. Where we're not clear, then during the main plenary, we can be able to come back and be able to share some of the experiences that we may have had. Okay, so Kantai, over to you, so you can take us into our meeting rooms. But also having strong committees as well that can then be able to manage the day-to-day and deal with the issues at committee level. So, you know, those are some of the issues that came up in room 1.
Okay, room 2.
Anyone who can brief us from room 2?
Yeah, I'm taking room 2 reporting. My name is Fanis. We looked at what defines an effective board leader, and we looked at what a leader is, the difference between a leader and a manager. We went further to look at what an effective board leader is and gave some characteristics like authenticity, trustworthiness, working towards a defined goal, and many others, including visionary. Then further now, we went to define really what an effective board leader is. And some of the items that came out were considering the understanding of the objective relating to the functions that have been assigned. And of course, being flexible and adaptive, integrity, transparent, and delivers clearly what has been given to them with a lot of cost effectiveness. Of course, quite a number of other things were mentioned. Of course, not forgetting that this person must have a control whenever discussions are being run without necessarily, ensuring all inclusivity and diversity. And of course, that an effective leader must be consistent and with good language while discussions are going on. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't even see why you guys need more information. Was there another breakout room?
Yes, we had room 3.
Yeah, our minute taker, please.
Yes, so basically room 3, my name is Rosemary Odo, and what we discussed was the headings that we were given. We had a lot of points, 10 or even more points under each heading. But basically, in terms of what makes an effective board, we said an effective board is orderly, meets regularly, has diverse expertise, skills, age spread, gender mix, chemistry between the board members. We said they have shared or common strategic mission that delivers, and clearly defined roles aimed at achieving objectives. They're an advisor to CEO, works as a team, is futuristic, looks at long-term, is accountable, progressive, not ceremonial or ticking boxes, and is participatory. Then we discussed what defines an effective board leadership. We said an effective board leadership drives positive dynamics to focus on big picture, has useful skills that will lead to success of the organization, is committed, available, high level of integrity, respectful to all, harnesses the strengths of others, consistent, decisive, and helps in problem solving, builds team dynamics, creates open environment for free discussions, accommodative, knows skills of other board members and encourage others to participate, focused and firm on decisions that have been made, confidentiality and trust, influence, and lifelong learner. In the third heading, how to handle leadership gaps, we said this is when leadership status is not meeting the organizational needs. And we said skills gap can exist in a particular area of expertise because of failure to pick a mixed board in terms of expertise, competencies, gender or age. We said board training should be carried out in board development, and we can invite new board members or co-opt. We can also invite consultants to advise the board in specialized areas. We also said that I think the last one was how to handle board decisions that we don't agree with. We said attempts should be made to have a consensus as far as possible. If not, respect for different views should be there. Explain your view. Dissent can be minuted for formal documentation. Otherwise, expert advice should be followed. A vote can be carried out, last resort. And yeah, we should be able to submit to expert views or defer the decision to a later time. We said at the end of it, the organizational interest is paramount, and that we should also assess our own individual judgment. Are we really being objective?
Wow. So ladies, like you heard, my name is Flora Mutahi. I've sat on boards for the last maybe over 10, maybe 15 years. And honestly speaking, I don't even know what more you people would want to really understand, because that is it. You've covered most of the issues and the most important issues around being an effective board. And I think for me, just listening to what you said, maybe I'll try and say the most important that stand out for me, or what really makes a big difference between right and wrong is, or what could also now start threatening these dynamics, are stuff like outside, what did I call it? Outside interferences. You know, if you have, let's say, a board and you are reporting, if it's under the ministry, let's say, for example, you will then tend to get interferences that you need to stay above board with. You know, listening to your boss and saying, yes, sir, I understand you want me to do X, Y, and Z, but this doesn't sort of fit into what I'm trying to do. So I'll talk about four essential areas for building, you know, strong board directors. One is broadening the scope, which is going beyond the fiduciary duties to engage more deeply on strategy, M&A, technology. Yes, you've got all these things that you're supposed to do, but outside it. So like I'm saying, when you start getting interferences, how does the board effectively but positively digest what you've been told and then give guidance? For example, I've been on a board where you tend to find a minister wants to employ X, and you know X might not necessarily, you have a procedure. You're going to advertise, X might or might not meet the whatever. But this person wants to shove this person in your organization. So you respectfully tell the person, we are going to advertise on such and such a date. Your candidate is more than willing to whatever, and you put them through the process. Assume, you know, the candidate comes out strong, good for you. Assume they don't, and this is still being pushed back. You politely, candidly have to still stand your gun and say, this is what we are supposed to be hiring for. These are the requirements. The candidate could be short in X, Y, and Z. Two things could happen. They could put their foot, they could say, fine, get me the best man win, or they could actually say, take who you're taking. Again, in this regard, there's really not much you can do if it is a matter above you. But you've gone beyond. You've had to stand out and actually say, guys, this is not normal. Let it be. You might not even be able to record, because some, especially when they get political, there's not much you can do. But majority of the time, the going beyond your duty is really having to when you get hit by things that you didn't think that were really going to hit you. For example, I'll give you another example. There's a board I sit on, and there's been a lot of corruption. And it got to a stage where now we had to deal with a particular character. You have to actually go out of your own way, find people who can help you bring in, you bring in the EAC, you bring in organizations to try and help you deal with this corruption. 3 months later, you tend to find everybody you bring in fizzles out into nothingness. But again, as a board, you cannot quit, you cannot compromise, you cannot whatever. So again, you try yet another way, to try and make sure that you've actually dealt with the corruption. In this particular board I'm talking about, there's 3 or 4 people we've been able to move. There's one particular one that we have totally been unable to move. Do we quit? No. Do we continue the fight? Yes. So being again, you know, when I'm talking about effective board leadership, it's not only about getting the work done, it's also about dealing with the very sticky areas that sometimes nobody wants to deal with. The other one is also around strategy. Boards tend to run away from strategy. Maybe the CEO has run away with the strategy. Maybe you've got issues, you're being told you've got to deal with this now, and it's always urgent. To always have a matrix that brings you back to strategy would also be important. Bringing your board into the digital age, that is also another very paramount importance. And have no fear to say this board requires, and we actually want to be involved in the training. There's one particular board I sat on, and we knew technology was the next big thing. And it wasn't just, you know, digitizing what we had. We knew we had to come out with technological products for the market. It was a large insurance company. And so what we did is we asked whether the head of the technology could actually be joining us for board committees. So they were upscaling the board in the same way. So as an IT person is telling you what they're thinking of coming out with, and then you have board members with different skills being able to plug in, we actually found we got the best of both worlds. So you get the technological, but we also had the business acumen for people who say, no, this will not drive the numbers, but this might. And the fact that we had the head of technology sitting with us really made a difference. But do not fear as a board to say this board needs to go out for some refresher or for some training on IT. Asking the right questions, you know, and we might not have it, tell the board or tell the business to pay for it so that we have exactly what you need. Involving your board in talent and culture. I think there's a statistic here, I don't know if they've shared this with you, where they say 86% of new CEOs are hired from within. So of the ones that are not hired from within, it is the chair's responsibility. One of the biggest responsibility of a chair is to actually make sure that you get good succession. The board is also very involved. So how do you have to continuously keep asking that sticky question around succession. You know, what is the succession of this organization? What is the succession even of the board? You know, what are our long-term views? Where is this board going to go? What are we prepared? In fact, sometimes you just say, are we prepared for the future? This is the 21st century. Are we prepared to go forward? And, you know, the other one is safeguarding the brand. So most successful companies already view customer engagement as the whole organization's responsibility, and few involve their boards in marketing too. Reason being is the adage that goes, you know, it's very easy to build a brand. It is very quick to destroy a brand. You saw, let's take, for example, the KFC example the other day, when they started saying they don't have fries. And it then became apparent that they import all their fries into the country. And this made Kenyans very, very mad. I know there's a particular, the KEPSA members were losing their minds. Now, a board needs to immediately jump in and say, this is a big thing that can ruin us. Emergency meetings, what do we need to do? How do we need to engage private sector? How do we need to engage government? And completely make sure you plug in all those holes. It is easy to say it's management's responsibility. I quickly say it is board's responsibility to guide management. So safeguarding the brand is really noticing the things that really can hurt the brand. So that's basically the first point, which is broadening the scope. As much as you have TORs, really the bigger areas that call for a board to get involved. Today, I don't know how many of you travel. We've been complaining about the time it's taking right now to actually get onto a flight, because they're checking the COVID tests and everything. Now, what does this do to the brand, Kenya Airports Authority? It's making them look bad. I mean, I even shared an email I got from British Airways that are saying, please extend your time. You know, we're not managing, the airport is not being managed well. Again, this is something that involves directly the board. Easy to say management, but I disagree. Board needs to be there. Deepening commitment, invest more energy. Make sure that effective board spend about 41 days on their role as opposed to 28 or 32 days for less effective directors. Basically, work more days. Develop a dynamic agenda. When agendas are sent, especially like to a chairperson, always ask yourself, what can management do? And what are the 3 key things that the board needs to spend its time doing? Usually blue sky thinking or just guiding the board. I usually try to do a split as much as possible. Try and have some blue sky thinking. Blue sky meaning different. How can we do things differently? Brilliant to bring them through the committees if you can. But again, even if you spend a little bit of your time in a meeting, setting the agenda and then asking committees to take it and bring it back, make sure you keep it alive in your board discussions by making it a standing agenda item, the future. What is the future of this brand? What is the future of this company? That is important. Clarifying responsibilities, I would say, is the 3rd big thing. Finding the right mix of experience and know-how. And, you know, first of all, appointing the right board chair makes one of the biggest differences. And we have a habit in this country of actually bringing board chairs that tend to be a little on the tired side. If you could keep them vibrant and excited, if you have one of those, and giving them new ideas is really going to make a difference. But clarifying responsibilities between management and board is also very, very important. I tend to find a lot of a very thin line between what is management and what is strategic. And always ask yourself, if somebody else can do this, I don't need to be doing this. If this is management, who can do it, and make sure it comes through. But I do know some CEOs who keep their board very, very operational so that they don't get pushed to corners. They don't get pushed to uncomfortable areas. So that's also another important area that we need to look at and make sure that we clarify roles, assign tasks to board members. It's also not very effective to have everybody in the board doing everything. So Flora, you're strong in this area, go that way. You're strong in this area, come back and report to the board. Working through committees is the best thing I do. I chair now 2 boards. I work through the committees. To an extent, I actually just work with the chairman, agree things before the beginning, and let them go and bring me interesting ideas. Of course, during the season, I'll always throw in a call and just say, how are you doing? Do you need any help? So appointing an ambitious chair, let's pray you have one of those. Look for experience and talent, and clarify. Keep clarifying even to the board member, even to the board. I mean, to the CEO, what they do and what you do, because there are some boards that will completely just get you engrossed in management and you're not effective. Creating trust is very, very important. Effective board balance is a collaborative style with challenging conversations. I'm seeing statistics that say 88% of more effective board directors cite a boardroom culture of trust and respect, compared with 39 of, where there's no respect. Remember, you're hopefully not all thinking and singing from the same, well, you definitely will come from the same backgrounds, same experiences. So you need to trust that I could go out on a limb here that will actually help this organization and not be ridiculed, not be questioned. You also need to trust that you could bring in some very confidential information that doesn't go out. And you tend to find in organizations where board members trust each other, they're more daring, they take more risks because they trust that if things are going wrong, they'll get quick feedback and they'll be able to know when things are not going wrong. So they say, how do you know your board is not, how do you know if your board is effective? And one litmus test is the growth and involvement of, investors. Balancing trust with challenging discourse. According to a recent global survey, boards that are most effective and well-rounded also have the strongest board dynamics, characterized by openness, trust, and collaborative senior executive and board directors. There's nothing wrong with asking your CEO once in a while to just bring in his exco to do a short stint with the board, present something. What does this do? It hopefully, and you're doing it, the CEO is the one to guide it. So you're not trying to undermine the CEO. That's also very important. But what you're also trying to do is to challenge and to grow those ExCo people, because they could be your future CEOs. But again, please make sure not meddling with the management is a key no-no. So constructive challenging between independent directors and management, and supporting. Guys, supporting your CEO as the chair is one of the biggest things you can do. Making sure they understand that as much as you're challenging, you're on their side. Even board members, just to go out and say, by the way, I was at such and such and I saw this happening and I think this board can come in. You will do that if you have trust. If you don't have trust, you will not do that. And those kind of things are very, very important to grow boards. Educate and train your board members. I think you spoke about this. This is very, very important. And for the chair, I would suggest educating and training them in areas where you know you're weak or in a direction that you know you want to go. Unfortunately, what we tend to do in boards is we tend to grow people in areas where we need to. For example, if you sit on a board, anti-money laundering is a must. So you take, I've trained my board. But really, yes, that's a good one, but it's a mandatory one. Are you training your board in areas where you want to go, where you want to thrive, where you want to be different? There's the whole ESG going on right now. Shall we train our board members in that area? Because it will help the CEO actually build the sustainability arm of a business. I mean, that's just an example of areas, technology, route to markets. Engage in continuous improvement processes. This is completely imperative. Whether you're running a Kaizen, whether you're running all these other efficiency improvement processes that we do, would be very, very important, with regular feedbacks, board evaluations as well. Very, 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 very important to have, where you actually give self-feedback and the board try and analyze. Okay, if you sit on a government board, you actually have to come out with a score. We actually did ours today and we came out with a score of 91%. I was very proud because I chair that board. And making sure that people actually give feedback. However, I must warn you, there are some people who are not used to feedback or don't like it. So some people retreat when you give them feedback. I had a particular guy who called me on the side and said he wants to quit. This has never happened. He can't understand his score. And so now what I do before we do any evaluation is I tell people it's not necessarily a reflection of you, of your ability. Maybe it's just you have not been able to give us time. And maybe this is a good time for you to be able to analyze it better. This particular guy, after him catching feeling so much, I tried to talk to him. He was very, very upset. But the second evaluation, he actually came out very, very well. And what we realized is he's just a quiet, commits himself. He's very committed, but quiet. He doesn't sit down in boards and give a lot of information. So I do hope this has been very useful, and I'd be happy to hear what you've gotten out of it, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you very much, Flora. Thank you for those thoughts. I had posed a question to the ladies for those that may have questions. I can see Sharon has put her hand up. I know we're running out of time, but do indulge us, ladies. We should be able to finish in the next 7 or so minutes. So Sharon, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Flora, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
Hi, quick one, Flora.
Yes.
I was wondering, especially when it comes to board dynamics, and
yes.
To be honest, our boards are not gender, they don't have that gender parity yet. And
yes.
Also, I actually just got on a board where I am the first Black person they've ever had on a board. How do we handle? I know, thank you. Thank you. But how do we handle those? How do we get our voice heard without being seen through the gender lens? Or now for me, particularly through the race lens?
I think, so how do we, sorry, just repeat that. Is it how do we deal or how do we present ourselves?
Okay, for me, the most important thing is, actually the board has 10 people, we're 3 females, And then it's a 15-year-old organization. I'm on the first Black on it. So I was just wondering, you know, how do I make sure my voice is heard without them having set biases? You know, I want my voice to be heard without them thinking, oh, well, you know, female or Black African. You know what I mean? To take me as seriously as they do other board members.
Okay, I think number one, I want to turn that on its head. I have no apology being female, and I have no apology being Black. I sit on a board, the UN Global Compact, and I remember when I went there, I think we were only 2 Africans, and the person who oriented me on the board told me, have no apology being African, because they chose you for a reason. So you bring the agenda all the time, and every time they bring a strategy, I say, I don't see anything here for Africa. I don't see this working. However, I'm going to take it that maybe your board, that's not important. Assume it's not that important to be Black or female. It's just how you speak. It's just making sure you speak in turn. It's just making sure that you don't do those things that women, oh, you're not picking me, and oh, just do like they do. And so that they don't start saying you're just being a woman. You know, the cliche that we speak at the top of our voices, or we're being emotional or whatever. Just take things in your stride. I don't know if I'm answering you enough. And then preparation, they expect you not to be prepared. And the other thing, when somebody assumes you, because you tend to have, if they assume you and just say, excuse me, I haven't finished what I was saying. You see, as opposed to, I'll give you an example. I was one time in a meeting and this lady kept putting up her hand, and then she said, you're just not picking me because I'm a lady. And I thought, you can't do that. Yeah, you just sort of say, excuse me, I think my hand has been up for, as in just try and be like them. But the being Black and being African, that one, I imagine I don't even apologize for it. I even on that board requested for an African strategy. I kept telling them, this thing you're doing for all countries, you're doing for the continents. This strategy will not work for Africa, and I request an Africa strategy. And I started saying they didn't have money, and finally found money, and we have an Africa strategy.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Flora. I could see Rose Maura, your hand was up.
I think Flora said it. You have to be prepared. I think that's what is very important. And you have to articulate the issues, and you should never use the gender card, and you should never be apologetic. So when you're prepared for your meetings, you've read your papers, so you're asking the right questions, and you are able to speak your mind without fear or favor. People will, if you think people are looking at you from a gender or a color lens, that will go away, because then they'll see that you're actually bringing something to the board.
Thank you, Rose. Any other questions, ladies? Flora, I have one for you. Okay, Sarah. Go on, Sarah.
Okay, I have a question relating to owner-managed business. How do you effectively chair an owner-managed business or an owner-managed board in the sense that the biggest shareholder is equally the managing director or the one who has significant influence on the decision-making process? How do you balance that? Because of course, in that space, the person who appoints the directors would be again the significant maybe shareholder or effectively the owner who manages the daily operations. But would like to also manage the board and just ensure that there is effective leadership in that space.
Very interesting question, because that's exactly where I am at. I own my own company, and then I have board members. And so they have managed me they sort of like take the cue from me. So if I call a board meeting, they're there. If I don't call a board meeting, they're not there. And to be honest, that's not good. In fact, I was telling them the other day, no, you guys, either we are friends, we will become over friendly. It needs to be different. If I could give what I would ideally want from a typical situation is you sit with that person and contract with them and say, listen, I'm going to sit on your board for X years. Or, let's look at it maybe 2 years for now. Now, in these 2 years, what are you trying to achieve? And how can I hold you accountable to what you are trying to achieve? And when you're going out of line, when you're derailing yourself from what you're trying to achieve, how much leeway are you going to give me? Can you allow me to say it? Can you, and how do you want us to continue to engage? And then if you do feel that they could be not that serious, somebody who's not that serious will say, sorry, it's my company, da 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 da. So you say, so is it a loose arrangement that you're looking for? So what you're doing is you're getting permission on how far or how much you can push this person. So if they say affirmative, I want to be very serious, this is my growth path, this is whatever, and then they come and do something totally contrary to what you're saying, you would be able to go back to the beginning conversation and say, excuse me, we agreed 1, 2, 3. I feel you're completely going against, offline. Is this a change in direction? And if it is it something you're aware you're doing? Is it something you want to continue to do? Do you want us to recontract again with these new parameters going forward? I think it's very important to sort of hold a mirror politely to them. I agree, being the largest shareholder. And then at the end of the day, you have to listen to the story behind the story. And that's something maybe if I didn't talk about it in the board, when I was talking about effective being a board leader, you as a board member, you have to have your ears open to the stories behind the stories. Because it's very easy to come to a meeting and wazzle and dazzle you with numbers and that happened and this happened and the other. But you could be, if you have your ear to the ground, you will then hear, actually, no, Flora has changed course. She started yet another business and we are here. So you're using your time trying to keep me accountable to one, and I've opened another one and I'm maybe deflecting my money that way. So it's important to always keep your ear to the ground, but always have that candid conversation of, if this is where we are going, this is not what we agreed, but I'm happy to change if you're, and then eventually you will look at it and say, I think I've sat on this long enough and I should be able to move on and let other people sort of guide you. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Flora, we have a question here from Patricia Koki. How do we handle voluntary board membership when conducting evaluations? When a member doesn't agree and feels unappreciated for the effort? What are your thoughts on that?
Is it they volunteer? Okay, like for example, I'll give you, is it like a volunteer board? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, so you are on a board voluntarily. So how do we handle evaluations when it's voluntary? And what happens, when a member doesn't agree or feels unappreciated for their effort? I mean, I'm volunteering, but I don't feel appreciated. I seem to be taken for granted. How do we handle those situations?
Number one, if you feel taken for granted, have that candid conversation I was talking about earlier. And just say, I have been giving you 4 hours a week, and what we agree doesn't seem to be panning out. Is this that moment where it's okay to sort of walk away? Because you have better things to do. However, if it is a board that you're on, maybe you want to mute someone. If it is a board that you're on because it's a platform to yet another board, what you need to do is then recalibrate your expectations and give just that time of you, because you know what you're doing. How do you evaluate in a voluntary board? I think by having very, what would I call it? Diplomatic evaluation, where you say, this is a typical tool. Can you self-evaluate? Do you mind? And then can we bring it up? Maybe you don't bring it up openly. And I think I would ask Catherine to answer this one, because there's one she did for us, where you don't say, this is Flora's score and this is Jane's score and this is whatever. You amalgamate the scores and you say, in this area, we seem to be a little weak. In this area, we seem to. So you don't sort of, embarrass people. But my other take on that is, even if it is voluntary and you commit it, a message from the chair, if you're doing very badly, needs to come in, where the chair just calls you and says, Flora, are you still engaged? We're noticing you're kind of busy. You know, we chose you for a reason, and we are, you know, is there anything you want to tell me? So I think for me, that is how I would go about it. Maybe Catherine can share her experience, where the one we did with you, Catherine. I think it was towards the end of 2019.
Yeah, Flora, thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, indeed. Once you have committed to serve on a board, one of the things that you are signing up to is actually a board evaluation, because it's one of those good corporate governance requirements, i.e., if we have employees in an organization, we, on an annual basis, assess their performance. So too, when you sign on to a board, whether it is voluntary or not, one of the things that you're actually signing up to is to, you know, holding up the mirror to yourself to say, how have we performed? It is actually quite an interesting process, but it also helps you look at yourself deeply, reflect on how you're performing as a board member, and make take any corrective actions if you need to take, harness any strengths that you have, so on and so forth. So it should actually be a very welcome thing. What I have found about board evaluations is they're not about the board you're sitting on. They're actually about you as an individual and how you relate with other people. So if you take them in that light, take them in the you know, against the background that these are really out there to help you even improve yourself as a person. It doesn't matter whether you're being paid on that board or whether it is a voluntary board. So a very useful process. Please be very candid when board evaluation is called for, and experienced board evaluators will not, as Flora says, say that Rose scored Catherine 3 out of 5 or 1 out of 5. They will consolidate the scores and just give me a 3.5. Catherine, this is your average score in this particular parameter. So it's a very useful process. Take it positively, and do encourage other board members to be as candid as they need to be, because that way you then build each other and grow each other as board members. Thank you, Flo. I hope that answers it.
Yes, my dear. And I think the other thing about, I think there's a question also about board participation. I think a chairman plays a very big role. If somebody is not participating and you're not feeling it, if you're a member of the board and you're really upset about Flora, if you reached out politely to a chairman and said, Chairman, would you mind having a word with so-and-so because they're canceling our committee meeting, you know, a good chair should be able to bring out the best of their membership. But also sometimes they don't know, they're not sitting in your committees, so they would need to see that.
Interesting points there, Catherine and Flora. We have a question from Zippy who says, you know, what happens if you're appointed to a board and there has never been any onboarding or meetings held 10 months since your appointment? How do you handle that as a member?
Hi, sorry.
Oh.
Do you mind repeating?
Okay. So there's a question here around, allow me to just try and find it again. So it's from Zippy, who says, what happens when you're appointed to a board and there has never been onboarding or any meetings for the past 10 months since you're appointed? How do you handle that as a member?
Well, actually, even by month 1, you should already have been agitating what's going on, what happens here. Get a meeting with the chair and then find out what exactly goes on. How can I help? What, you know, because that might not be a serious board. Secondly, I don't know, if it is a government board, maybe it could be around funding. If it's around, it looks like somebody's just ticking a box. So it would be important for you to just say, you know, I'm able to, you know, maybe if you can afford it, you can leave the board. If not, and it's a good profile for you, just keep agitating to try and make the board happen, and offer your time and just say, Chairman, if you're very busy, can I call this? Can I see this? Orientation is important. If you don't get it, demand it. It's just one of those things, like even in an organization, don't wait to be given. At the age we are at now, is just you demand what you need. So just say, do you have an orientation pack? Yes, no. If not, can I have the last maybe 5, 6 board meetings? There are no people who ask for the last 3 years. I find that a lot. And you'll be able to get a little bit of a gist of what they've been deliberating on. If they refuse to give that to you, then just say, can I have a meeting with the CEO, where you ask the CEO all the questions you want to ask, and ask to also meet the chairs of the committees.
We have the last question here from Charity, who asks, how do you as chair manage conflict in the board members fast enough to allow you to focus on the goal and keep the business moving? So conflict management, especially for board members.
Conflict, I mean, it's a big one. It's just about, you basically have to give everybody a listening ear. A good chairperson listens to everybody, and you try not to take sides, which, like, for me is very hard because I'm very quick to take a side. So you try and remain as objective as possible. And if 2 people really cannot sit in a room, perhaps try and see them outside, try and make them understand the other person's point of view, and eventually try and just remain objective and tell them it is for the good of this organization that we are meeting. Beyond these doors, what you do, whether you kill yourselves, kill each other, that's not my issue, but right now, could you, whatever. So it's really trying. What you do is you support everybody. Everybody needs to feel they're your best friend on a board. And everybody needs to feel, actually, let me put it another way. Everybody needs to feel important on a board. Everybody needs to feel that the little contribution or the much that they're giving is appreciated. So if you continue to appreciate people and tell them, I understand you're not get on with John, but I hear you, I hear what you're saying, I hear where you're coming from. And if you really, obviously they're being unreasonable, you try and invite them to see the other point of view.
Thank you, Flora. Clearly, conflict management is always one that I guess that happens, given the board dynamics in the boardroom. So lots of compliments coming in. Thank you, ladies. I can see Catherine, Jerry, you're giving compliments to Flora for a job well done, for the great insight. So ladies, we really, really, really appreciate you being with us this evening. And Flora, we appreciate your time as well. So at this point, and let me allow Anne to come on board and just appreciate Flora for the insights that she's given this evening. So Anne, you're on the platform, you can give the vote of thanks, and then we can talk about the next steps going forward. Karibu sana, Anne.
Thank you, Rose. And thank you very, very much, Flora, and Happy New Year. I think 2022, you're on fire. And I was just reflecting as you were speaking, and I was saying, I think we need a full masterclass, and I really appreciate this program that WOBN has for us. Thank you for your takeaways. We have picked so much from you, all the practical examples. I think this is the first time I've heard somebody talk about how they dealt with corruption on a board. So really, really thank you for that experience, and looking forward to get more mentorship from you and the rest of the people who are going to take us through this period. And also to thank the team, Rose, Catherine, and even Zippy and the other mentors who are sitting in on the breakout rooms. We are really learning from your valuable, valuable experience. So thank you very much. Over to you, Rose.
Thank you for those compliments. We also want to thank the Secretariat led by Mrs. Wanga, Kentai, who does a fantastic job in the background. Hannah, we do appreciate your efforts in making this a success. So next steps, ladies, we do have our next mentorship session in February. We'll be communicating the dates.
Allow me just to say thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you, Flora.
I'm just saying, allow me, and I really apologize for what happened, but the good news is my phone is now fixed. It was being fixed as I was doing this, so let me go and pick it up.
Thank you very much. Asante sana.
Okay, bye-bye.
So as I was saying, our next session will be in February, and it will be led by none other than Dr. Julius Kimetich, who's also one of our Women on Boards ambassadors. And he'll be talking about boards that deliver How do you move from purely compliance to competitive advantage? How do you turn boards into high performance teams? And what are the skills that you need to acquire so that then you're able to operate the new normal? So quite an exciting, engaging session. Dr. Kimwetich certainly does not disappoint. What else is coming up? As you can see on your screen, we have our program, the calendar of events for 2022. We're going to have the induction program that will be happening later this month. Between February 7th and 11th, we have the Corporate Governance Crash Program. So please plan to attend. I know time is valuable, so we've decided to condense that for you. In the month of February as well, as I mentioned, we have the Women on Boards Ambassadors Program, and that will be facilitated by Dr. Julia Skipner-Teach. Kentai, we could move to the next page. And then in the months of March, we will have, again, another mentorship session. I believe this will be by John Ngumi. And then a board talk on 10th of March. And lastly, within the month of March into April, we'll have the board profiling and personal positioning. So quite a few events coming up in the year. So please do sign up. If you need any information, Kantai and Mrs. Wang are available to provide that. At this juncture, let me say good night, God bless, and thank you for being with us. We apologize that we were a little late, but I'm sure we've been able to catch up. Asanteni sana and keep well. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you very much.